them, they don't like us.
When you get ready for this game, you buckle that chin strap up a little bit tighter because you're going to get hit in this game like you've never been hit anywhere in your life.
You know that every year it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a huge battle.
I don't care if you're 10-0 or 11-0 going into Michigan, you lose it, you're nothing.
It's going to be a clean, ass-kicking game.
Scarlet and gray, I turn red. I hate scarlet and gray.
In practice, you see those guys in a blue jersey with a little yellow stripe on them, and you were just hoping, hey, I want to hit these guys for real.
I know that Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Auburn, USC, UCLA, they're great rivalries. But I can tell you that people here in the Midwest all feel that Michigan-Ohio State is the greatest rivalry in college football.
Michigan's first game was in 1879, Ohio State's in 1890. It would take 7 more years for these natural foes to find each other, and when they did, the fight would be anything but fair.
Oh, Michigan totally dominated the team, the series. Those were the Fielding Yost teams, the point-of-minute machines, and they were far ahead of the pack of not just the series, but everybody in college football at the time. And not only were they winning, but they were just totally dominating Ohio State. When you're getting clobbered by somebody over a decade's time, some hatred tends to build up.
The first game of the series was played in Ann Arbor in 1897, and the day's score gave no indication that something special was afoot. The Wolverines won 34-0, scoring all their points in the first half. The Wolverines went 13-0-2 versus the Buckeyes from 1897 through 1918. The ultimate indignity was an 86-0 pasting in 1902, the worst defeat in Buckeyes history. In 1912, the Buckeyes didn't stop the bleeding, but they helped formalize the rivalry by joining the Intercollegiate Conference of Faculty Representatives, soon to become known as the Big Ten. In 1919, Charles Chick Harley, OSU's first 3-time All-American, returned from the service to help beat the Wolves 13-3.
Chick Harley really was the first great superstar of Ohio State football. Led them to a victory in 1919, and once they broke through, then it became what all great rivalries is, and that's the back-and-forth nature of one team winning, the next team winning, and from there it was pretty close over the decades.
From 1919 to 1921, the Buckeyes won 3 straight, and interest in the rivalry soared. When 72,000-seat Ohio Stadium was completed in 1922, it was referred to as the house that Harley built. Over 84,000 were on hand when Michigan Stadium was dedicated in 1927. All-America Benny Oosterman celebrated, throwing 3 TD passes to halfback Lewis Gilbert as the Wolverines rolled 21-0. In the 1930s, the Buckeye Express was back on track, outscoring the Wolverines 114-0 in 4 straight thrashings from 34 to 37. In 1938, 2 men rejuvenated the Wolverine squad, Coach Fritz Chrysler and old 98 Tom Harmon. Chrysler came to Ann Arbor from Princeton and introduced the winged helmets that today make Michigan so recognizable. Harmon was a one-man wrecking crew who led the Wolverines to 3 straight wins over Ohio State.
I saw Tom Harmon play, and he was no doubt a true Heisman Trophy winner. There's no question about it. He did everything. He punted, he passed, he received kickoffs, he received punts. He played both offense and defense. He was a great football player and a great person.
In 1940, Harmon delivered the greatest performance in series history. The Wolverines won 40-0, and old 98 had a hand in 34 points. He rushed for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns, completed 11 passes for 151 yards and 2 scores. On defense, he made 3 interceptions, returning 1 for a touchdown. He also kicked 4 extra points, averaged 50 yards on 3 punts, and returned 3 punts for 81 yards.
Tom Harmon finished his career at Ohio State and received a standing ovation for his performance out there because of what he did on the field.
That year, Harmon won the Heisman Trophy and was featured on the cover of Life magazine. In 3 games versus the Buckeyes, Harmon accounted for 618 yards, 238 more than the entire Ohio State roster. Harmon's dominant play spurred the resignation of OSU coach Francis Smith. Paul Brown, the legend in the state of Ohio, then coach of Massillon High School, was recruited as Buckeyes coach. In 1942, Les Horvath led Ohio State to a 21-7 victory. Horvath, later to become Ohio State's first Heisman winner, caught 2 TD passes. Paul Brown led the 9-1 Buckeyes to their first national championship before he departed for the Navy. In 1946, U of M's All-America halfback Bob Chappius led a 58-6 victory over the Bucks, passing for 3 scores and running for another before leaving the game early.
He would be embarrassed if anybody caught him from behind because he wasn't the most fleet-footed, but he was a great passer and a good runner as well, but not a great runner.
Chappius was the key member of Michigan's Mad Magicians. Considered one of the most dazzling offenses in collegiate history, Chappius' Magicians whipped the Bucks 21-0 and went 10-0 to share a disputed national title with Notre Dame in 1947.
That was a very important game, and Ohio State had not been that good all year. But it doesn't make any difference when you're playing Ohio State. They always come up with a good effort.
In 1948, Ohio State outgained Michigan, but Charles Ortman connected with Harry Alice for a 44-yard score. And Michigan won 13-3. U of M went 9-0 and earned an undisputed national title. In the 50s came Wayne Woodrow Hayes. The 1950 game was a classic featuring 3 teams: Michigan, Ohio State, and the very forces of nature. Ohio State was ranked number 8 and heavily favored over an unranked, undaunted Michigan contingent that still had its eyes on the Rose Bowl. At game time, it was 10 degrees and snowing. 5 inches of powder obscured the field, and 29-mile-an-hour winds rocked Ohio Stadium.
The Snow Bowl is legendary here, especially in Columbus. It was a tremendous snowstorm, came across the Midwest, and they talked about canceling the game, and Michigan's athletic director, Fritz Chrysler, said, if we don't play it today, I'm not coming back next week. So they decided to go ahead and play it. They had the referees sweeping, with brooms, sweeping the side markers and the yard lines to try to make some kind of semblance of a field.
The Wolverines got 0 first downs, didn't complete a pass, and gained 27 yards on the day. Ohio State garnered 3 first downs and 41 yards. Ohio State's Vic Janowitz won the Heisman that year. Considered by many the greatest athlete in Buckeyes history, Janowitz ran and passed for 16 touchdowns. But in the Snow Bowl, his greatest achievements were punting 21 times and kicking a 27-yard field goal in near whiteout conditions.
Vic Janowitz was a great football player. He was a triple threater. He was a guy that could run, pass, kick, whatever you want done.
With field position crucial, both teams punted early and often. Late in the first quarter, the Wolverines blocked a Janowitz first down punt. The ball squibbed out of the end zone for a safety, cutting OSU's lead to 3-2. Late in the second quarter, Buckeyes coach Wes Fessler ordered a 3rd down punt.
I'm sitting up there because I'm kind of a red shirt guy and not dressed for the game, and sitting behind a little old lady about 83 years old. She jumps up and she says, "Don't you punt that ball, Fessler. Don't you dare punt that ball, Fessler." And I jumped up and I said, I'm with you, lady. Don't punt the ball, Fessler." He punted the ball. They blocked it. We lost 9-3. Fessler never coached another day at Ohio State.
From 1940 to 1950, 5 men ran Ohio State's football program, and the school acquired an unpleasant nickname, the Graveyard of Coaches.
Hayes took the head coaching job, you either kept your job or lost your job depending on how you fared against the team up north.
You know, if you lost to Michigan, you were out. 3 years in a row, you were out. No matter who you were. So we were the place where coaches died.
After a misstep versus the Wolverines in his first game, Woody quieted his detractors and turned the Buckeyes into a scarlet and gray steamroller that went on a 12-5 run versus the Maize and Blue. Woody changed the very nature of the series.
Coach Woody Hayes had a special way of preparing for the Michigan game. You see, he was the type of coach that had the regular season, then Michigan, and then the bowl season. So it was a separate season as far as we were concerned, that Michigan game. And Coach Hayes recognized that, and he knew that in order to win that football game, you got to be the best that you can possibly be.
Woody spiced up the rivalry with his tantrums and rants. He dehumanized his chief opponent, always referring to that state up north rather than saying Michigan.
When Woody Hayes was driving his car toward the Ohio-Michigan line going into Ohio, he would coast across the state line rather than stopping to buy gas because he didn't want to leave any tax money for the bitter rivals.
In 1954, Hayes etched his greatness in marble. He led Ohio State to a 21-7 victory over Michigan, and the Bucks' win over Southern Cal in the Rose Bowl earned them a share of the national championship.
They just were formidable looking at those uniforms. I don't know what it was. I think Woody put extra large numbers on their jerseys, and there were numbers on their shoulders, and it was a formidable team that would come down the tunnel with those gray pants.
The 1968 Buckeyes, called the Super Sophomores, started 8-0, were ranked number 2, and appeared poised for a 3-year run of greatness. Ohio State was led by quarterback Rex Kern, a future All-American, the assassin, fearsome defensive back Jack Tatum, and Jim Stillwagon, who later won the Outland and Lombardi trophies.
When going onto that field in '68 for warm-up, 2 women were waiting at the tunnel, and I came out and they threw beer inside my helmet, right on my face mask. They just doused me with beer and were walking out, and I said, now you know these fans do not like us.
The emotion at that time was very high. The city of Columbus was so excited. They had not had a Big Ten champion for a long time. In fact, the previous year, they were trying to run Woody out of town because he didn't have a great football season.
Ron Johnson completed the Michigan drive with a 1-yard TD leap, and the Wolverines took an early 7-0 lead in Columbus. Ohio State fullback Jim Otis bowled his way in from the 5 to even matters. Otis was a Buckeye battering ram, blasting through the Wolverines like an end-zone seeking missile to give Ohio State a 21-14 halftime lead.
We had to make a statement in our own stadium. That was a telling touchdown because it gave us enough confidence going in halftime that, hey, look, we're ahead by 7, but not by much.
We played fairly well. We were close, and we had a touchdown called back on us. And so we thought we were really in that game, and then they just blew us out in that second half.
In the second half, Hayes unleashed a scarlet and gray juggernaut that roared to a 44-14 lead with under 4 minutes left. Woody had previously said 50 points and nothing less is satisfying.
Our team at that year, we just overpowered people. Eventually, they succumbed to us, and we piled it on, like Ohio State would if they had the opportunity, the same as Michigan would.
The Bucks intercepted and returned it to the 11. On 3rd down at the 2, Hayes brought in Otis.
Jim was hammering, harassing Woody on the sideline that, hey, put me back in, coach. And Woody succumbed to Jim's pressure and the heat of the moment stuck Jim back in.
Woody's ace fullback responded with his 4th TD of the game to make it 50-14. Not content, Hayes again went for 2 points. The attempt failed.
Just pushed it in, put it in our face. It was unbelievable that Woody could go for 2 and, rubbing it in.
After the game, scribes, reporters, the media asked him, how come you went for 2? He said, because I couldn't go for 3.
From 51 through 68, the Wolverines won a solitary Big Ten title. Coach Bump Elliott left after the 68 shellacking, forcing athletic director Don Canham to seek fresh blood. Canham went south to find what he needed in Glenn E. Bo Schembechler.
Dick Larkin was the athletic director at Ohio State at that time. And he says, oh, don't hire that guy. Don't hire that guy. You're going to end up just like I do with Woody, because he's the same kind of guy. I said, well, I may be looking for the same kind of guy.
Bo had a perfect pigskin pedigree. He played for Woody Hayes at Miami of Ohio and was a Hayes assistant at Ohio State for 5 years. Schembechler had memorized his old boss's playbook, adding a few wrinkles of his own.
They were friends for 364 days a year, but that 365th day, they were out there with one thing in mind, and that was to win that football game.
Bo knew his old boss's tricks and refused to let his players forget the humiliation of 1968.
That stuck in the craw of the Michigan players. They never forgot that. And, you know, when you're having an intense rivalry that's very close, and in one game it gets out of hand, and you rub it in like that, it'll come back to haunt you.
Entering the 1969 game, Ohio State looked unbeatable. The Bucks had won 22 in a row and were eyeing another national title. Michigan was a 17-point underdog. The Buckeyes were supremely confident, but there was one factor for which they hadn't accounted: anger that had been building in Michigan since 1968.
As we went to that locker room to get our equipment and things, we saw the number 50 everywhere. Bo had put 50 on everything you could see. All the shower curtains were 50. There was a 50 on everybody's locker.
As a matter of fact, I put the entire demonstration teams in number 50. You know, usually you put the number of the corresponding guy on the other team that plays. I put them all in 50. So to make sure they remember.
And he told us at the scouting report, he said, the old man put 50 points on you guys last year, and you should never forget it. And we didn't.
Although nobody gave us any chance to win that game, there wasn't a Michigan player who didn't think we matched up well with him.
The game started just like 1968 as fullback Jim Otis gave OSU a quick 6-0 lead.
After they scored first, we took the ball and ran right down at them and scored. And we looked in the face mask of those guys, and they were sweating heavy, and their faces were red, beet red. And you could see that defense had never been game that long. So we saw then that these guys were equal. We could beat them, and that was a great feeling.
With under 12 minutes left in the first half, Garvey Crawl leaped into the end zone for his second touchdown. With a 24-12 halftime lead, Bo had them bursting with confidence.
He really felt confident that in the second half, he knew Woody so well that he'd be able to handle it from there.
In the second half, both defenses were superb, stifling all scoring drives. OSU's Rex Kern was suffering from back problems, but made no excuses after throwing 4 interceptions.
I thought Bo was in our huddle, and every play that we called, he had the perfect defense, and his offense knew exactly what we were going to do.
Garvey Cross summed up the Wolverines' feelings, saying this is the greatest victory in the history of the world.
I'll never do anything the rest of my life that equates quite to that feeling of when we went up the tunnel after beating Ohio State in 1969.
You always give your arch rival the benefit of the doubt, even though they might not have the greatest talent. You can never measure the size of their heart.
Woody said, you know, people have asked me, what was the greatest football team I ever had here at Ohio State? He says, you know, men, that 1969 team, I don't think there's any team that could match that. And he looked at me and he said, damn you, Bo, you will never win a bigger game than that. And he was right.
From 1970 to 75, Michigan was 57-0-2 entering the big game. Both teams were unbeaten coming into the 70 showdown. But after tasting bitter failure in 1969, the Buckeyes had motivation on their side.
Woody put down a mat in the locker room that had the final score 24-12, so the players had to walk over that mat every day to remind them of it.
I still have a bumper sticker that says remember Ann Arbor, you know, and that's all I could ever think about is that next game, my senior year, because I wanted to win it so bad.
A Rex Kern TD pass to Bruce Jankowski gave the Buckeyes a 10-3 lead at the half.
Woody always loved these great names, and we called it Gold 98. And the reason we called it Gold 98, Woody said, every time we run this is as good as gold. You can take that to the bank.
Ohio State's defense was unyielding, and the Wolverines soon found they couldn't sustain drives on the ground or in the air. With Michigan silenced, the Buckeyes added 10 points on a Rex Kern pitch to Leo Hayden and a Fred Schramm field goal. After the heartrending loss of 1969, Ohio State gained a measure of revenge with a 20-9 victory, and the Bucks earned another New Year's Day trip to California.
We're ready. Look at old Dr. Strange Hayes. He's got all those test tubes jumping up and down. God darn it, isn't this great? I love this. God darn, Michigan and Ohio State, all the blue chips, all the scarlet and gray chips.
Archie, in 4 years, never played in a losing Michigan game.
1972 marked the debut of one of this rivalry's epic players. During his 4 years at Ohio State, Archie Griffin helped the Buckeyes to a 3-0-1 mark against the Wolverines and became the sole player to win 2 Heisman trophies.
It was always a goal of ours to hold Archie under 100 yards. I wanted nothing more than to hit Archie as badly as anybody could get anybody on the opposition.
He seemed to play his best in those games, and that's what great players do. They play their best in that game.
Michigan came into the game 10-0 and ranked number 3 in the country. Ohio State was 8-1.
It was really exciting for me that to get out there and actually play in that game, especially as a freshman out there playing with the veterans, you might say.
Griffin set the tone early with a series of pounding runs. He bolted 18 yards off tackle to set up Harold Henson's touchdown as OSU took a 7-3 lead in the second quarter. Griffin later broke free and streaked 30 yards to pay dirt as the Buckeyes extended their lead to 14-3 in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, controversy would erupt during a Michigan drive. The Wolverines had first and goal on the 5. On third down, Michigan coaches argued that Harry Banks had scored. The officials ruled otherwise.
We had a great defense that year, super defense. And in effect, that's what changed the ball game because of the 2 great goal line stands. And we got 2 touchdowns. And they couldn't make 2 touchdowns, and that was the difference in the ball game.
And I'll tell you, no one will ever forget the infamous football game at Ohio State Stadium on November 25th of 1972.
Michigan was 10-0 and Ohio State 9-0 entering the 73 contest. The Buckeyes were the top team in the country, and the Wolverines ranked 4th.
It was kind of a heartbreaking game because I think that 1973 team that we had was one of the great teams in Ohio State's history.
It was a miserable rainy day, and the Buckeyes went to the ground game and nothing else. Archie Griffin was Ohio State's chief load bearer with 30 carries for 163 yards, 99 in the first half alone. By the second quarter, Ohio State was up 10-0. The Buckeyes had allowed 4 touchdowns all season, and the lead looked insurmountable.
We had a great defensive team. If you look at the scores that we had during that year, nobody was even close.
Despite Griffin's domination, the Wolverines got off the deck and tied the score at 10. But Michigan paid a heavy price when quarterback Dennis Franklin broke his collarbone. Still, kicker Mike Landry had 2 chances to win it for Michigan. But both attempts failed, and the game ended in a deadlock. The Big Ten held a secret ballot to determine who would head to the Rose Bowl. Michigan was optimistic but lost the vote 6-4, in part because of Dennis Franklin's injury.
73 game was my worst time in college football. That was a disgrace to the Big Ten Conference.
Like Tom Harmon at Michigan, Archie Griffin came to embody the strength and power of Ohio State football. There are strong similarities between the men. Harmon never lost to Ohio State. Griffin never fell to Michigan. Both were star backs who won Heisman Trophy. Both played for powerful teams that fell just short of winning national titles. In 4 years at Ohio State, Griffin became the only two-time Heisman winner. He finished his career against Michigan with 395 yards and 1 TD. The final game of the Griffin era featured two unbeaten powerhouses. Ohio State was ranked #1 because of an exceptional running game that also featured Pete Johnson and the arm of Cornelius Green. #5, Michigan featured freshman Rick Leach, a rare Schembechler quarterback given the freedom to beat teams with his arm and his scrambling ability.
A lot of the older guys pulled me aside and said, look, you get ready for this game. You buckle that chin strap up a little bit tighter because you're going to get hit in this game like you've never been hit anywhere in your life. And that was certainly true.
The Buckeyes drew first blood in the opening quarter on a 7-yard pass from Green to Johnson. The Wolverines then resorted to trickery. Leach pitched to halfback Gordon Bell, who found a diving Jim Smith in the end zone, helping Michigan to tie the game at 7. The game remained even until the fourth quarter when Rick Leach took over, passing the Wolverines into Ohio State territory. And then, with just over 7 minutes left, Leach burst into the end zone, carrying Michigan to a 14-7 lead. Ohio State was in trouble.
I can remember our quarterback, Cornelius Green, calling us together, and we held hands and we said a little prayer and asked the Lord to help us to play to the best of our ability.
2 quarters, they controlled the game. Then in the fourth quarter, we took it and went 80 yards for a touchdown, and most of it passing. Ryan on 3rd down caught a 12-yard pass for a first down and got us out to the 32-yard line on an outcut. And then Arch went for 17 on the run off the same action exactly. And then we marched right down and scored and tied the ball game 14-14.
We knew going into that game that if we tied that game, Ohio State, based on whatever criteria was going to go, we had to win the game outright. So Bo called me aside and said, we got to go for it. We got to try and win this game.
On their next possession, the Wolverines took an aggressive tack. Playing for the win, Rick Leach dropped back and fired deep. Another Griffin stepped into the limelight. Archie's brother, Ray, picked off the ball, returning it to the Michigan 3. Pete Johnson scored his 3rd TD for the lead.
The Griffin house was jumping that night. Ray had a great game, and that interception was the one that really got us in a position to win that football game.
Well, Bo had said before the ball game, I'm not playing for a tie again. See, he'd learned his lesson. He wasn't going to play for a tie.
It'd be nice to walk away saying I never lost a game to them, but that's the reality.
Michigan entered 76 in tumultuous fashion as Coach Schembechler underwent open-heart surgery. But Bo returned by late summer and led his Wolverines to a 9-1 record. 8-1 Ohio State was ranked 8th. The game was a defensive struggle initially, 0-0 at the half. But in the 3rd quarter, the Wolverines' ground game began displaying its trademark crushing vigor. All-America halfback Rob Lytle and Rick Leach scrambled their way into Buckeyes territory. Then Russell Davis ran the ball in from the 3 to end the drought. Michigan added touchdowns from Davis and Lytle, who was the day's hero with 165 yards and a touchdown. But the leadership provided by Coach Schembechler and his lefty quarterback was essential to this victory.
Every single player, when he takes the field at Michigan, looks up there and it says, those who stay will be champions.
The following year saw Woody Hayes trying to avenge a rare loss to Michigan. Ohio State looked impressive as quarterback Rod Gerald led 2 early drives. But Michigan's defense showed its mettle, forcing the Bucks to settle for a single field goal. In the second quarter, Rick Leach went long to Roosevelt Smith. Smith broke inside the Ohio State 10, setting up his own successful goal line carry, giving the Wolverines a 7-3 lead going into the second half.
We gained 23 first downs up there against them, and they only made 10. Yeah, we outplayed them badly, particularly again, the momentum changed in the second half, and we ran them down that field like we owned it.
Down 14-6, the Buckeyes started a final drive on their 10. Rod Gerald was inspired, threading the needle with passes and running the Buckeyes into enemy territory. With about 4 minutes left, Ohio State moved to the 8. But with the game in the balance, the Buckeyes went to Gerald one time too many.
We ran an option play on the first play, and it was my fault. We ran it to the sideline rather than the open side, because we thought we'd get their best end to the open side, and we wanted to run the other way. And their best end stayed in the sideline for some reason. Maybe they had a giveaway that knew we were going to come there. And he put his hand out and hit it and caused a fumble, and that was the end of the drive.
Woody Hayes was so infuriated that he took a swing at a cameraman. Woody's poor anger management would land him on probation for the 1978 season. From 1968 to 1978, the Wolves and Bucks were 139-9 in the Big Ten when they weren't facing each other. The Big Ten began to be referred to as the Big Two and the Little Eight. But as his teams continued to dominate, Woody Hayes' anger continued to fester in public. Ohio State took swift action after Hayes swung at Clemson's Charlie Bauman during the Buckeyes' Gator Bowl loss. The next day, Hayes was out as coach. Hayes led teams, won or shared 13 Big Ten titles, 3 national titles, and beat Michigan 16 times.
He was a great leader. He would take average player and make him good. He made everybody play up another notch, play past their capacity. He'd make a good player play great and a great player a superstar.
Woody Hayes once said, "Nobody despises to lose more than I do." That's got me into trouble over the years, but it also made a man of mediocre ability into a pretty good coach.
I ran a study of football players who had played for Coach Hayes for the first 25 years. 87% of those players graduated. And I went to Coach Hayes, and I told him it was 87%. And Woody kind of did this, and he wore glasses, and he pulled on the side of his glasses, and he goes, "I'll be damned. I thought it was better than that." He said, "We need to get that up into the 90%, and I'm going to start working on that tomorrow."
With Ohio State's greatest legend in retirement, former Hayes assistant Earl Bruce was given the daunting task of leading the Buckeyes.
Earl would always say, when I get a head job, I'm not going to act like that guy. I'm not going to act like him. You know what? Earl's just like Woody. He's doing everything just like Woody did.
You talk about a football coach. There's a good football coach. He's tough to beat now. Matter of fact, I think he had the upper hand on me. We had some great battles, and I've always had a lot of respect for Earl, because I think he's a wonderful coach.
In the first game of the post-Hayes era, a number 2 OSU squad rallied to top the Wolverines. With 4 minutes left, Ohio State's special teams came up with a huge play.
We blocked a punt at the end of the ball game and ran it in for a touchdown that beat them 18-15. And their punting game was atrocious that day. Schleister played well. We had 4 tailbacks play that day, and our last tailback was Tim Spencer. He held on to the ball and made us able to win.
The 80 game was a low-scoring affair. Anthony Carter, the greatest receiver in Wolverines history, scored on a John Wangler pass to make it 9-3 Michigan.
Anthony Carter always seemed to burn Ohio State.
There's nothing that he couldn't do. The thing that probably separates him from a lot of other receivers who can run and dodge and catch is that he was tough as nails. I mean, you know, when I catch it across the middle, fine. They could knock him for a loop, and he'd just hop right up.
With under 3 minutes remaining, Art Schleister took the reins for the Buckeyes. He got a quick first down, then threw 4 straight incompletions. The Buckeyes got the ball with close to a minute left, and Schleister led his team to the Michigan 32, but the rally died when Schleister was called for intentional grounding on 3rd down and was sacked on the next play.
I'll never forget that small locker room there, the unbelievable euphoria of that Michigan team that had beaten Ohio State.
The 87 Buckeyes started 5-4-1. On the Monday before the Michigan game, OSU President Edward Jennings announced that Earl Bruce would be fired after the season.
Yeah, 1987, I was really proud of our football team. On Monday, I was fired, and we decided that we were not going to talk about that. We were going to really focus on getting ready for Michigan, and to the best of our ability, we did that.
Before the game, OSU players donned headbands emblazoned with one word that spoke volumes.
So in a show of support for Coach Bruce, everybody decided to wear these headbands, or at least around their neck, that said Earl on them, to show that, you know, he meant a lot to us.
OSU used its motivation to upset Michigan in what would be the Buckeyes' last win in Ann Arbor till 2001.
We went up there and we got behind early. They moved the ball. They ran the ball effectively against us and got ahead 13-0. And Tom Tupa slowly brought the quarterback, brought us back piece by piece. We got in the game 13-7 at halftime. Came out the second half and threw a little pass in the flat that ended up to be about a 65-yard touchdown run by Carlos Snow. And we went ahead. And we never looked back from there.
The greatest memory I have as a player in all my years of playing was watching the team pick Coach Bruce up on their shoulders and carry him off the field, because they knew that this was his last time as head coach for Ohio State football.
Bo's last game versus Ohio State was in 1989. The game featured 2 heroes, Todd Plate, who made 2 interceptions, and Gerard Bunch, who rushed for 2 touchdowns in a 28-18 Michigan victory. Schembechler finished his career 5-4-1 versus Woody Hayes and 11-9-1 versus Ohio State overall.
He is the Woody Hayes of Michigan, and I always like to say, and a little bit in jest, is that, you know, the best thing that happened to Michigan comes from Ohio.
He made us grow up, and he said, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. This is the Michigan way. This is the way I want it done, and this wins. He was right.
Well, he brought everything that Woody did, and in my opinion, and more.
One of the greatest coaches ever.
But it was exciting because of the magic of Desmond "Magic" Howard. Howard's 50-yard third-quarter reception set up Michigan's last TD. But what stood out in bold relief was Howard's statuesque profile after he returned to punt 93 yards, helping Michigan take a 24-3 lead.
Desmond gets the ball, runs up the east side of the field, runs into the end zone, and as Keith Jackson is making a mention about the Heisman Trophy, on time, like choreographed, Desmond makes the Heisman pose.
2 years later, Terry Glenn said Michigan's nobody. He couldn't have been more wrong.
Ohio State had a great team. Eddie George, of course, that year would win the Heisman Trophy. And on Monday, prior to that game, Tamanga Biaka-Batuka walked into my office and he said, Coach, I'm going to play my greatest game at Michigan. We're going to win this game. Now, I've had a lot of players say, I'm going to play a great game. I'm going to play my best game. But not very often has it worked out.
Tim Biaka-Batuka was indeed the game's true sage. Carried 37 times for an incredible 313 yards. Biaka-Batuka nearly tripled Eddie George's yardage total.
So I don't ever remember a performance that was more outstanding than what he did that day. He broke tackle after tackle.
Freshman Charles Woodson also stepped up for Michigan, intercepting 2 passes intended for Glenn.
Bo told me he came in the locker room and he said, Lloyd, he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, you'll never have a greater win than that one.
The Wolverines came into the 97 game ranked number 1 for the first time in nearly 50 years. The Bucks' David Boston added zest to the pregame stew, predicting a big Ohio State victory. Still, both teams girded for a low-scoring game featuring the top 2 defenses in the nation. The Buckeyes outgained Michigan, but defense and special teams carried the Wolverines. Charles Woodson helped himself to the Heisman, scoring on a 78-yard punt return, catching a 37-yard pass from Brian Greasy, and intercepting a Stanley Jackson pass in the end zone.
Charles Woodson's the greatest football player I've ever been around. He made every single guy that was around him better. I mean, if his best friend wasn't working hard, Charles Woodson would not spare him.
After the game, Woodson said of Boston, except for one play he laid down out there. I got on his chest and told him he was soft. I was like a father chastising his son.
That was the national championship year for Michigan. I think kind of sets it all apart because, Woodson was just absolutely a wonderful player, and he went against Boston. Just a great individual battle between the two. And I think, when you see 2 great players like that with a great game, it just was a lot of fun to watch.
The Wolverines capped an undefeated season by beating Washington State in the Rose Bowl, earning their first national title since 1948. After a 2000 season sullied by an 18-12 loss to Michigan, John Cooper was dismissed, leaving with a 2-10-1 record versus the Wolverines.
Of all places, who knew I'd be in Columbus? But those were good years. I lived in Columbus for 3 years, and, Michigan, those are John Cooper's era, so if you know what I mean, we had a few wins there.
It's tough anytime you lose to Michigan, and unfortunately we had a stretch there that we lost quite a bit to those guys.
Michigan-Ohio State isn't about parties or pom-poms. It's about cold-weather smash-mouth football. It's about turning hate into grudging respect, yard by yard. For both teams, it is the season in microcosm. Each time these teams square off, it is a continuation of the match of the century.
The problem with losing to Michigan, that's a loss for a year.
I can tell you that on both sides, we always did something almost every day to beat Ohio State.
The fans and everybody gets excited about it. And as a football player, if you can't get excited about it, then something's wrong with you and you don't deserve to be a football player.
This is the game we separate the men from the boys. We find out what your true worth is. This is why you're here. This is why you come to Michigan, to find out what you have in the tank.
I can tell when it's the Michigan week. Not that my phone's ringing off the hook from the sports writers and publicists, but there's just an internal clock.
You're talking about 100 years. You're talking about some of the greatest players that ever played the game. Heisman Trophy winners, All-Americans. You're talking about coaches that are in the Hall of Fame. You're talking about some of the most memorable games in the history of college football. There's nothing quite like it, and I don't think that's ever going to change.